of them that we have worked with, we partner with is a local chocolate making factory. It's called Active, ACTIV. It's a non-government organization, but focuses on providing alternative ways that farmers can trade in their goods, and then they value add. So that's the scenario of what we are doing currently.
Excellent. And then that gives scope for people to take the raw material to the factory. So that is one component of the business. Then people to uptake the processed product and then distribute and sell it. So again, that those could be two different lines of businesses or opportunities for enterprise setting, not entrepreneurship, but enterprise building is a very interesting. No, very interesting framework. No, thanks, Gilrick, for giving me that insight. It's wonderful. Yeah. So very nice. Yeah. Welcome, Gamal. How are you doing today? Hi. Are you on the mic? Have you unmuted? Can I just hear you? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no worries. Because in the workshop, we will have some interaction. If you are not on the mic, you can type it, of course, but if you're on the mic, that would be great. Hi, Natasha, welcome. How are you doing?
Hello, yeah, I'm good, thanks. What about you in Manchester?
Yeah, Manchester, it's as always rainy. Always rain. But yeah, we're getting into October. You know how October is in the UK, right? So,
Grey and rainy, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And Manchester is the benchmark for that weather, I guess.
Hello,
But
doctor.
you seem to be making good progress on the platform. So, do you want to share some feedback on how the
Yeah.
learning experience has been and how you? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been brilliant. I tried to catch up at the weekend, for the first two, and then I this morning was trying to do this one because I want to be more prepared this time than I was last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. I love all the videos. I'm sure you've spent hours, months, years finding the videos for us to watch rather than us looking through the internet trying to find the right video that gives us the information we need. Really enjoyed the interview with, is it Dr. Sonka?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just really great resources so far. So yeah, I feel more prepared for today, but we'll see when we answer the questions.
Yeah, sure, no worries. I mean, it's not necessary that you have to come prepared, but it depends. Different people do it different way. But the idea is for anyone to become comfortable. Sometimes you're able to contribute more if you're more prepared, or if you have experience. You know, a lot of people come with experience and then they contribute significantly. But the idea is everybody goes out of the workshop with something valuable, basically, right? So that's the whole idea. I've seen your performance, very good. So the business model course, I wanted to hear your feedback on that specifically. Was that insightful for you? I mean, someone of your experience and your caliber, I wanted to test, how did you find that? Is that useful?
Yeah, definitely. I had no idea that pivotal difference between social enterprises and the kind of traditional route. I thought that social, they weren't for profit. I thought there was like a different way that they had to be made up, but that was really interesting. And cooperatives, because I know in Europe there's many cooperatives, but in the UK it's not so big. We have the big ones like Arla operating, but there's not many players. So that was fascinating to me.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And Gamal had some great questions on cooperatives for me. I had some audio notes prepared for him. If you would like them, I can share them with you as well. But yeah, but that's basically how we, which is what is a very difficult part. So if there is one thing that needs to be the starting point, but that doesn't exist even with businesses that are 20, 25 years old, is that attention to the business model, basically, right? Like, okay, what is our value proposition, and how do we go about um, bringing that value proposition to the market and keep improving on that value proposition. So that is not generally the case in the sector. And especially the more upstream you are, that is more production side you are, the less differentiating the value proposition is or the business model is. And then you struggle to make um, money if you're that way. So I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you're not speaking, you can mute yourself. Yeah, welcome Okonu, welcome everyone. So let's try and kick off. We have a good group already today. If there are any questions before I start, we can take one or two questions and then we can move on.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah, sorry, Kali, who is this
Do you hear
speaking?
me? Do you hear me? This is
Yeah, yeah,
Diwan.
I can hear you now.
Just,
Yes, do you
just,
want to say
just I
something,
want
please?
to test my microphone. That's okay
Yeah,
for you?
yeah, it's working.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Any other questions? Any questions? So when you want to ask something, please just raise your hand this way. That way I can see that you have a question. It need not have to be a question. You want to share your experience either on the from the learning platform, but your personal experience, just raise hand because I want it to be as interactive as possible. So, yeah, so the first 15-20 minutes will brush up the concepts. We will hear your experiences. I can share some of my experiences with Agritech. I think I've closely interacted with about 200 to 50 Agritech founders in the last 12, 13 years. And I do understand this space, or I did understand this space a lot more than a lot of people in the past. But over the last couple of years, the same tech is being built. So I'm not really so much following the founders as I used to. But yeah, I have quite some experiences to share here. So we'll look at some of the technologies, and more importantly, the business side of the technologies, the application side of the technologies. Then we'll enjoy discussing with the help of a few questions, like we always do. So basically, how do you understand digital agriculture? So what is your perspective about digital agriculture or agri-tech? So do you want to share your experiences about digital agriculture before I start and say something about it? Anyone would like to have a shot at it?
I'll start that conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
just from my side, being a consultant, working with different farmers, and companies, it really seems to range from very small scale. They think, okay, I'm collecting it on the traditional Excel, what I've got out on my field, versus drones and things like that. So it really varies. I think it encompasses a lot. But I recognize that the actual slides really help to define it better. But when you talk to people in the field, they might just see it as almost like big data. It's just all put together in this topic when it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. No, very well said, Natasha. Thank you. Ukanu, you have anything to add to what Natasha has said?
Not at the moment.
No worries. Gilrick, you have any point to any experience to share about, because you work with really smallholder farmers in very conventional value chains, both cocoa and kawa. So I was curious, what is the state of digitization in these value chains from your experience?
So from the experience that we have, it's about 5%, mostly because of internet connectivity is an issue for some of the farmers. But we are trying to slowly help them to see the value of keeping good records, and so some of them have ventured into purchasing smartphones, laptops that can be used with the help of the children. I mean, children in the sense that that they are above 18 years old, because of the requirements by the program to be working with young adults. So we capitalize on the youth who are a little bit more tech savvy to start engaging them into um, taking part actively in the digital aspect of agriculture for the small farmers. So that's where we our small baby steps at the moment.
No, excellent, wonderful. Yeah. So for me, the slide is kind of, yeah, Gamal, please.
I think the communication sector faced a lot of challenge when it came to the setting up priorities. But now there is a revolution on the communication sector when
Mhm.
it came to blockchain, when it came to digital transformation.
Correct.
Uh, Now the agriculture are facing the same, situation when it came to technology, upgrading, the type of production, decision making, as it mentioned here. So I think digitalization for the agriculture, it will benefit the small scale farmers at all. But how, this is, the problem. We want to learn from you.
Yeah, yeah. No, wonderful. Very good points. So, see, I mean, last week we have done the agriculture production decisions session. And then we have said that there are a set of decisions that the farmers have to go through, and they have to make those decisions. Now, how do they make those decisions? For any decision making, data is a very important component of decision making. Of course, you have experiential based intuition, but data based decision support will help you make the right decisions. So now, what happens in agriculture sector, as Natasha and others have said, either the data is not available, or it is not available in the format that it would support the decision making, basically, right? So now the digital agriculture is all about collecting data and trying um, to analyze this data, or make use of this data in a way that you're able to do better decisions. So now, on the one hand, the farmers are uh, not making those decisions, but if they were to make those decisions, they need the data and the power of data offered to them in the right way, so that they can combine that with their intuition and experience, and then make the right decisions. So just experience based decision making is suboptimal, basically, right? And which is where I think the data based decision making is very important, and that is what digital agriculture is about. So now, how do you collect data? How do you analyze data, and how do you use that data for decision making, and how do you correct your decision making going forward based on the experience? I think that is all what agritech is all about, basically. So now, when it is about decision making, the value of uh, decision making is different for different type of farmers. So the value of agritech will be different for different type of farmers, based on their business models, based on their uh, scope of the business, scale of the business, and so on. And so we need to understand that very specifically. So data-based decision making is very important, but at the same time, the value of data, or digital technologies, or digital agriculture, is different for different farmers. So economic viability of technology for a business model is kind of very critical. So that's kind of roughly how I understand it. Okay, how does this technology support the decision making of a farmer? If it is not supporting the decision making of a farmer, then I would say the value of that technology is going to be very uh, is lower than when it is able to support the decision making of the farmers. Do you all agree, or do you have any points or any thoughts on that? Is that a useful articulation of digital agriculture for you guys? What do you think? Yeah, no points. So then I'm assuming silence is agreement, and then I'm moving forward. So now we say that, okay, we talked about range of decisions last time, right? Like we talked about which seeds to use, which fertilizers to use, which pesticides to use, where to buy inputs, where to sell inputs, and all of it. So now all of those decisions have to be made on certain weather data, soil data, crop data, livestock data. If you have a regenerative farm, for example, or an organic agriculture farm, or if you're running a livestock business like a poultry business. Water data, we talked about that last time. So we saw 14 parameters that are influencing the whole decision making landscape of the farmer in the last workshop. So the data around each of these, and then supply chain data like what Gamal was talking about, the traceability, inventory tracking, transportation. So now all this data, and then if this data is used based on the decision that you need to make, different types of data has to be put to use, right? Like they put to work basically. So that's what, and then compliance data and regulatory data. If you see, a lot of food processors I spoke to, they don't understand the safety protocols, they don't understand the regulatory changes, they don't understand as much of labeling guidelines. So all of this is very difficult to understand for a small to medium scale business, or even for a large business. Now, if you can take the help of digital tools that can help you, that can give you warning saying that, hey, but you can't do this formulation because it'll violate this protocol, for example, this safety protocol, or this ingredient usage protocol, things like that. Or you can't use this pesticide because that will not permit you to sell in the market because it is going to exceed the MRL limits, minimum residue limits for the product. So this kind of information is not there. So there was a very interesting case study. There was a lady that was working. That was working for a family business in Greece, and they had, I think, they have 50 acres of grapes, and then in that particular season they had a pest, and they used some chemical advice by their agronomist, and then only at the end of the season they recognized that in the markets that they have to sell, which is UK, Netherlands, and Germany, that because of the usage of that pest, they cannot sell it anymore. So now they had to do a distress sale after the harvest, basically, right? So that was a huge kind of a decision, and it was with a very simple mistake of using a pesticide that should not have been used. And if there was a mechanism that has warned them to not use it, then that would have been very effective for them, right? So that is what I wanted to speak about this slide. I'll take some questions from you if you have. So Filsha from Indonesia says, do we need to install sensors on the land to collect the data in real time? How do we decide the investment is worth it? That's a good question. I would say that um, it's a very difficult question to answer without knowing the context, right? And of course, that is um, some of those, some of the slides I present here, some of the questions that we go through will help you get a little bit more clarity on your question. It's a good question. I'll try and park it for a while and see if by the end of this session you get a good feeling about it. Any other questions?
Let me. Oh, this is O'Connor here. Let me just make a comment from the question he asked about sensors.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a company I got in touch with. They're called Sat to Farm. I think they are based somewhere in India.
Mm-hmm.
They have some satellites all over, so they try to get data, gather data from locations,
Yeah.
especially where they kind of exist. So you can get data on the fly through them. It might not be excellent, but it's something to actually start with and then fine tune getting other data sources. Sat to Farm is the name of the company.
Yeah. Yeah,
Software.
no, sure. I think there are many other ways of getting the data, and we will see that in the next slides. But the reason
Okay.
why I did not answer that question is because by the end of this workshop, I wanted Filsha to get uh, uh, the answer on the own. So that's the idea. But no, good contribution, Okonu. Thank you so much. Let's get further
Okay.
with this particular. So here, so data capturing tools. So again, Filcha's question. So there are many ways. So sensors is one of them. Installing sensors. So sensors is near sensing, which means you have to install them at the field or closer to the field. And remote sensing can happen in the form of satellites, drones, for example. They need not have to be owned by one field. So I now know that there is this, like they used to rent tractors and other farm equipment. Now drone renting is also becoming a very popular business model. Then there is the cheapest way, which is satellite based monitoring, that can also give you a lot of data at the level of the farm as well. So now the satellite remote sensing capabilities have also enhanced. Now how do you convert that data? So there are many ways of collecting data. It need not have to be with installing sensors on the farm, but there are certain applications for which you have to install sensors on the farm. So if your requirement is specifically around um, uh, for example, water management on the farm, right? So then there is some level of sensor capability that you have to install inside the farm. Again, we will see examples on where sensors would be needed, for what type of applications they would be needed. And to answer the question of economic feasibility, it has to be assessed for every business model by itself, on itself. So that's the important point, right? You cannot generalize and say that for these, there could be two farmers producing in the same acreage next to each other, but for one of them the technology might be feasible, and for the other the technology might not become feasible, economically feasible. Why? Is that possible, or am I giving a very uh, am I trying to is that a very practical scenario? Two farmers next to each other producing in the
Yes,
same.
it is.
Yes,
Yes,
Gama.
it is. It is.
Yeah, Gama, please go ahead.
Yes, I agree totally. For example, for inspection procedures, you cannot do seed for the crops or the cereals, and at the same time there is a farmer near to you growing the same, crops, because it may be not getting in touch with the good seeds from your farm. So we agree totally that there's a different ways, different environment, and different practice from the two farmers themselves.
Absolutely. Even if they're following the same practices, if they are selling to two different markets, So assuming that they're doing everything the same way, just because they can see each other and they can learn from each other and they're doing the same things, right? So if you see this course on business models in the curriculum that you're learning on the platform, if you see this company that is Louis Tomatin, the example that is discussed there, the honing tomatin example that is discussed there are 50 companies that produce with the same variety in the same conditions with more technology or same level of technology, but the marketing and the positioning and their distribution strategy, their product strategy, their branding strategy, their other complementary partnerships make a lot of things different for that organization as opposed to the other 49 organizations. So that's the point. The point is you can, of course, differentiate with your farming practices, but you can differentiate with your market side, the type of buyers. The last time we spoke about, if you do not have access to the right buyers, then a lot of things will become infeasible for you, right? So it becomes very difficult to say, but generally speaking, um, uh, for smallholder farms, sensor installation is a challenge. So it doesn't become a business case for a lot of smallholder farms. And I know this because I worked with a founder who is a very close friend of mine who has actually developed a sensor based technology for irrigation management for smallholder farmers. Under $100 is the price of that whole product. But still it becomes very difficult for from a adoption point of view. Yeah. So here these are the different ways in which you can gather data. Now, of course, it is not straightforward, right? Like you have to use different applications, so people have to develop applications to be able to read the data. Yeah. Yeah, so that's fine. So now data capturing, sharing, and control. So Internet of Things. So IoT. So basically, sensor is just an hardware. Now, how do you connect? How do you program the sensor, and how do you connect the sensor? How do you power up the sensor with the software? That is the real thing. And then how do you connect different sensors? So there could be a sensor that is reading a soil data, soil moisture data. There could be another sensor that is looking at the humidity, and there could be another sensor looking at the weather prediction data. And then all these sensors should talk to each other, and then they should make a decision or give the information to the farmer saying that, hey, you should possibly not irrigate your field today, or you should irrigate your field in 3 days time, or you should irrigate for 1 hour today and maybe 2 hours day after tomorrow. And then you can take it a bit further and say that you have programmed all these sensors in such a way that the farmer doesn't have to do anything. The field is automatically irrigated and fertigated by this IoT product, basically, right? So it's IoT is, again, try not to read too much into it. So the different sensors, they're talking to each other, right? So and then talking in a way that they're facilitating a decision for a farmer, or they are carrying out, they're executing a decision on behalf of the farmer. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah. Any thoughts? Any questions? IoT? Any experiences with IoT? Natasha or Iomide?
I can't say I have for this one, no.
Yeah. But you have heard of IoT? You have read about it, or participated anything in an IoT context? No?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's in home devices these days, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
So it's surrounding us. I think for the farmers I work with, maybe it's quite expensive as a setup cost. So because it's fairly new to them, there's fear, so they haven't invested in it. I'm sure there's very innovative ones who have, but I've not personally worked with them to see it.
Sure. Yeah, again, if you have any thoughts, any questions, please raise your hand. So, this is a very good example of a place where an IoT becomes a very interesting business case. So, if you have grain storage facilities, silos as they call them as, so if you really see these silos, like grains could be stored in them for 3 months, 2 months, 1 year, 2 years. So now maintaining, so if you have to protect your grains, the temperature and humidity plays a very, very important role. So now, how can you manage the temperature in the silo in such a way that you are actually protecting your grain, maintaining the quality of your grain for as long as possible? Because otherwise, there is no point in storing the grain, isn't it? If it were a total loss, right? So now here you have a technology that basically regulates or changes the temperature, or um what you call personalizes the temperature in the silo based on the temperature and humidity levels, and the grain quality and the grain condition. So imagine if there is a mold detected somewhere, then you have to, I think, make it more warm in that area, right? So those are the kind of automations that are being done. So typically, the farmer doesn't have to actually take any action with respect to managing the temperature and the humidity in a silo. The technology can do it. So this is a very, very good business case or an example on where technology becomes relevant, and it is needed. But of course, that doesn't mean you can make technology as expensive as you would like, right? So you should actually make it. So there is a threshold under, beyond which, even for this kind of silo, it may not be possible. Again, also for different farmers, for different markets, their affordability would be different. For different products that are stored, the affordability would be very different. So it is a combination of a lot of factors. But the more the scale is, the more the value of that particular operation is. So this operation's value is going to be considerable, because you're storing a huge volume of grains for a longer period of time. So installation of the technology becomes, or can become, a much easier or a better business case. So again, if there are any points, any experiences with grain silos, I've never worked in this space, so I don't know much. Yeah, Gamma, please.
Actually, I witnessed one of the experience in relation to the complementary of irrigation.
Mhm.
They use IoT to provide information about humidity, about rainfall, and if there any lack or shortage in the rainfall, so the surface irrigation it will start and complete, the whole, the areas. So also it is a very fantasy experience.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get further. So here is the IoT application for livestock. So health monitoring of cattle is becoming very important at this point in time. So there are these IoT devices that are really monitoring the health of the livestock on a real-time basis, and sending notifications saying, okay, you have to, water your cattle, or you have to take this particular uh, they take this particular one to a vet and things like that, or you have to vaccinate this particular yeah. So this is those are the kind of decisions that are being supported by by the IoT. So now variable rate technology. Last time we talked about precision agriculture, precision application. So again, rather than making it more, not making it very complex. So basically, if you are able to automate um, the application of fertilizers or pesticides, or water management or whatever, and then if you can monitor that in a real time and control it in real time, then you are able to give variable rate application, meaning different plants get different level of attention, which is a very normal thing, right? Like every different patients that go into a hospital receives different attention, different uh, students in a school receive different attention. So the same way, different plants and the way they have dealt with have to receive different attention. And the precision agriculture is made possible because of this IoT and the application of hardware and how these are combined in the right way. So variable rate technologies, I don't know a lot about it, but I'm happy if Pawan or anyone wants to speak anything about this. Pawan, do you want to?
Yeah, Sujit. Uh, so basically, variable rate technology is nothing but it is more like taking it's on surface level. It is about precision agriculture itself, like supplying what exactly the plant needs
Mm,
or optimally. So nothing more or nothing less. So it can be done only through the data, having a right kind of data uh, and analyzing that data and taking a decision using that particular data.
correct.
So so it is more about resource optimization, but at the same time, resource optimization based on the data rather than just like there are different ways of resource optimization, right? Like, but here it takes decision from time to time basis based on the data. So it doesn't have any fixed criteria on why it is taking a particular decision, but it will take a lot of factors to provide what exactly the plant needs. So that's the idea of variable rate technology.
Yeah, got it. And Mr. Sonka explains on the platform very well on this. He's an expert on this particular concept of variable rate technology. So here there are some examples. So there are solutions where in Japan, for example, a lot of um, agriculture is done automated in this point. Even application of fertilizers, everything is coming closer and closer to automation, especially in big crops. And then precision, if you are able to have very good resource efficiency and automation, that is great, isn't it? So that's there are many examples. So Nile works is one such example out of Japan. So I was talking about an irrigation gadget for smallholder farms, that is the under $100 technology that is on the left, which really does automated irrigation. um, so in small farms, many a times what happens is people just irrigate for as long as they can irrigate. They do not really have a data driven approach towards it, and this device takes care of or solves that problem and brings resource efficiency. But not only resource efficiency, it brings in emerging markets, for smallholder farms, the electricity fluctuation is also a lot. So because when the load of the electricity is fluctuating, then the motors that are running or pumping the water, they get spoiled a lot. So this technology also switches off the motors when such fluctuations are high, or when the number of phases, so the required amount of power is not there for the motor to run well, then it switches off the motor, so it increases the life of the motor as well. So there are very interesting challenges that can be solved with the help of IoT. But then, of course, adoption is a big problem, and economic feasibility is a challenge. But when you have solved the adoption problem, I believe under $100, this is a very interesting investment and a very feasible investment for smallholder farmers. But then the adoption becomes a problem. So first, economic feasibility. Just because it is economically feasible doesn't bring the adoption. The adoption, there is a big gap between. So product conceptualization to economic feasibility is a huge journey, and then economic feasibility to mass adoption is a much difficult and a much challenging journey. So one needs to understand this to be able to suggest solutions or develop solutions. So automatic weed killing lettuce bot. So this is an American or US based application, I would think, a large farm application, I would think. So then there are these digital marketplaces. So we talked a lot about seeds and inputs and their authenticity. So there are a lot of these digital marketplaces, and some of these marketplaces are putting up some traceability and blockchain kind of technologies. So it's becoming more and more possible for smallholder farmers or farmers to assess the quality and to validate the quality, to also have access to a range of expertise because of the digital platform. In the past, they only had access to the extension person or the agri input retailer. We talked about it last week, right? So, but now that is kind of changing. So, they're very interesting models around marketplaces which you will learn. There is another course also, smallholder farmer, digital agriculture for smallholder farmers, in the pathway, which will expose you to a lot of innovations around smallholder farmer agriculture business. So let's do some interactive Q&A. I'm taking a little bit longer, but I hope you are still enjoying, because I would like to understand it myself before I move forward. Yeah, Natasha, please.
Yeah, I just wondered about that last slide because what's to say that they don't get incentivize these kind of companies to only I don't know, put at the top of the list or suggest certain products compared to, for example, a government extension service?
Excellent question. And that is a huge problem. It is a huge problem in reality. I mean, which is where I think the the revenue model is very important, is what I feel. So, for example, I always advise founders to have one revenue model, meaning that you charge from the farmers. If you are supporting the farmers, whomever you are supporting, you have to charge from them. You cannot have 10 sources of revenues and then hope. So your business model is telling you, it's not about people are good and people are bad. It's your business model that is telling you. So if you go and talk to these businesses, there is huge funds and huge expectations for their investors. So then they want to have 100 different revenue sources, basically, right? And when you have multiple revenue sources to different stakeholders and you're charging money from both, it's like, you are a lawyer and you're representing both sides of the the case, and that doesn't work, right? It's similar, because in some sense there is a competition in the value chain. So if you have to be a facilitator, you can only be a facilitator by representing one party. So if you have multiple revenue streams, you are bound to lose trust from the farmers, and you're bound to be a bigger problem than so the world becomes a much worse place uh, than without you, basically, right? So that's a great question, Natasha. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's why sometimes there's more trust in cooperatives because, like you say, they have the members' fees, and then um, you just feel like they're not incentivized from many different streams. They're really there for a certain group.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, the corporate, see, it's all about the design, the design of the organization, right? How it is designed, and then who are your customers? So if you go back to the business model design, so if you say I am servicing farmers, then you have to figure out a way to make it to charge from them, right? So if you are selling inputs, because agri input retailer, so if you are saying I'm a digital agri input retailer, why can't you make money out of the farmers? Because the local agri input retailer or dealer is making money from the farmers. You figure out a way to add value and to make money out of the farmers. You cannot say that, okay, I am servicing the farmers, but is being paid by the product owners, right? So that doesn't kind of work. Then the argument they give is that the product owners also in some sense incentivize the local retailers as well, but the good ones, the genuine ones, they just buy the product and resell it. So a retailer should not be biased about the product. They should serve in the best interest of the customers, right? So the roles are not clear. The problem with these digital solutions is that, okay, they don't uh, they don't really understand who their core customers or beneficiaries are, and then stick with a revenue model that is helping the core beneficiaries and not conflicting. So it's a very serious challenge that exists in this digital marketplace ecosystem. It's a great point, a great question. Yeah. Shall we move forward? Yeah. Well, let's take the questions then. So I think this comes from a little bit from the last session. Robert has recently graduated and wants to start his own production business. What are the potential data points that can assist Robert in selecting the suitable crop for his new production venture? So this is a very very interesting use case for digital agriculture, in the sense, like, when you're starting a business, you can actually do it the right way. After you have started the business, after you have set up the business, after you're running it in a certain way, it becomes a little bit more difficult, right? So weather and climate related data, soil health parameters, market intelligence of various crops. So production, market, which one do you think is the right thing for so which data points are important? Yeah, so that should be pretty straightforward. So there is no reason why you will not consider the production factors or the market, not consider the production or the market factors. So it has to be all of the above, right? Yeah, Natasha, you would like to explain your answer a bit, or Gilrick, who wants to? Any thoughts, any questions, or is it pretty straightforward? Shall we move to the next question? So anyone that is thinking of an answer other than D here, raise your hand.
I think this is the right answer. Straightforward, I believe.
Okay, great. Let's move forward. Right? Great. So an agtech startup is utilizing remote sensing to provide crop yield estimates. So remote sensing can estimate crop yields. Um, Again, the only challenge with remote sensing is that it's not as accurate as it could be from near sensing. That's it, basically. Otherwise, that is the cheapest way to sense and to estimate. So, who could be possible beneficiaries of these estimates? So, who benefits from having the crop yield estimates? Growers, produce buyers, financial institutions. Yeah. Are only growers and produce buyers, or all the three? So, all the three. So, why would financial institutions benefit, Natasha, you think? From yield?
They. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll go quickly. I think because then they can see how you've made decisions before, what's happened before, in order to determine risk and insurance.
Okay, interesting. So, you basically are assessing the production side um, uh, output, right? Like, so in the sense, how much money can you make can be validated if you have a very genuine yield estimate projections, because everyone knows that the next season the yield may not be as good as or as bad as this season, right? So what would the yield be in the next season? If there is a better estimate for me, then I'm able to decide on my financing, whether I should finance or how much I should finance. Yes, Gamal.
Yes, actually, you answered my question as to about, the insurance itself. The financial institutions, they want to know about the real situation for the farmers, and after that, can compassionate their failures, like for example. So insurance company, they are fully aware by, this kind of data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Also the government, I think also the government itself, when it came for the whole production for the country, for food security, like for example, they want to know also the whole issue.
Absolutely. Oh, very good, very good, very good. Wonderful. And why would produce buyers? Of course, as a grower, it's very straightforward because I want to know how much yield I will get so that I can estimate my revenues or potential revenues, or I can do commitments appropriately or market. So how would produce buyers benefit? So buyers of produce, how would they benefit? Who would like to answer that question? Maybe Iomida, are you able to speak? Are you able to come on the mic or not? Yeah, no. Satya.
Yeah, uh, I think buyers, one is, I mean, they get to know, right? I mean, where they can buy the produce from, and also, I mean, they can plan their, I mean, their activities as well.
Yeah, they can plan their sourcing better, right? So
Yeah.
they can have a more sustainable and assured sourcing. That is why they might need those estimates. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Okay, let's move forward then. Let's say E and then move forward. Yes. So, what is the economical way for collecting the acreage distribution of different crops of a country? Drone based data collection. So, you run drones over every farm. Is that the most economical way? Or satellite based data collection, meaning that you basically do remote sensing at the level of a village or the level of a block, region, district, county and state and country, or village level field survey by public sector employees, so that the employee goes, the extension people go and then collect. So, satellite based data collection possibly is the best thing to do, right? So, the drone based data collection is helpful for particular farm. Village level field survey is possibly a little more outdated, but in certain cases, it might have its own value. But the most economical way has to be the satellite based data collection, I would think. But then, what would be the challenge with a satellite based data collection method? Would there be any challenge, or is that a straightforward no brainer approach or methodology. Gilrick, what do you think? Yeah, so Satya says accuracy. So do you think, so do you want to say that satellite based data collection is more accurate or less accurate?
I think, I mean, compared to any human-based collection versus this, definitely there would be improvement in accuracy, but uh, still there may be some errors, right? That's what.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. It's a remote sensing, so the accuracy is a challenge. Very well said. Natasha has a good question, I would think. Yeah, Gamal, is that a question or a remark? Please go ahead.
No, actually, just to observe that it should be all of them from our experience in Sudan here. Like, for example, we do this kind of the annual surveys, and we
Hmm.
send, batches and missions to the field and getting, the data from there. And after a while, one of the minister, he won't shift totally from this kind of,
Hmm.
practice to get satellite-based data collection. And they assigned, an Indian company, to get, this data from the satellite.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, at that time, because, the adjustment and, the technology was not uh, prepared well. So there is a big differences when it came for the production at country level.
Yeah.
From that experience, now Sudan was adopted, the three kind of data, but it's still drones still not coming because regulatory bodies and the government staff not well known about the benefit from the drones in agriculture in data collection. So for me, the three of them they are right, to do it.
No, excellent point, Gamal. That's an excellent point because I would say that satellite-based data collection is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition. So depending on, so you may have to use A and C for validation purposes. So you can say that okay, I have the national level data from the satellites, but I would want to deploy a drone level assessment in this region and a village level field survey in this region and see how accurate is the satellite data because when I deploy A and C, I know the accuracy level is very different. So both A and C are A is more efficient. So if you want to validate the level of accuracy, because once I know how accurate the data is, I can say I can use that coefficient and then estimate the right production. So absolutely, but economical. The most economical is satellite based, but it is not accurate. To overcome that, you may want to do some validation techniques with A and C. That's a great answer, Gamal. In the module, it is said that satellite data is often done by private companies rather than government agencies. Could that mean access to the data can be expensive? That is again an excellent point. I think there are certain governments that are taking initiatives towards it. There is the idea that that kind of uh, data access should become more unbiased, should become accessible to everybody, data access as such. So satellite based data access should be possible for every company, but I don't think anybody is paying for the data itself, I would think, right? Like more, I mean, what you do with the data. So it's not just about the data collection, but how you use the data for decision making. That is where the private companies have a lot of role to play. Like, how do you build sensors that can use this data and help the farmers to find better markets or to become more efficient, to save more water, to save more fertilizers, to save more input costs, and so on and so forth. So I think, but yeah, you're right. In the sense, they could also be companies that are trying to monetize that part of the stuff which is freely available to them. In some sense, it's. I mean, they still have to do some investment to get it to get that access. But I would say that. Technologies that are not supporting the decision making and contributing to profitability for whether it is a smallholder farmer or a bigger farmer, it doesn't matter. They will struggle to build a business. Sooner, over very soon, I think everybody will have access to this data facilitated by governments. That is how I see it. Does that answer your question, Natasha? To some extent, at least.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, settler, that's the whole idea. It's not about answering the right question, because that sometimes would be straightforward, but it's not as straightforward as Gamal says. In practice, it's very different, right? In practice, now, how do you deal with uh, the validatory challenges? How do you deal with local constraints? How do you deal with local adoption challenges, language challenges, mindset challenges, cultural challenges? So all those elements are very important, and that is why everything has to be contextualized, which is why talent plays such a significant role. If the talent is saying that, hey, that it is working there, so it should work here also, it will work here, and then you're ignoring all the um, parameters, conditions, and the constraints locally, then you are really uh, not progressing the value chain, but regressing the value chain in that sense, right? Okay, let's move forward. So, which of the following cannot help much in early detection and prevention of crop diseases for a farmer? Satellite based remote sensing, sharing the information on a new pest detection in the region, weather based prediction on possible pest outbreak, farmer identifying the anomaly in the field and getting treatment recommendation through mobile by uploading the crop image. So early detection is what they are saying. So do you think that by the time farmer is identifying it, don't you think that is a little too late, maybe? Satellite based remote sensing can give you a little proactive indications, warnings. So that should be all right, I would think, right? That is needed. Um, Sharing the information on a new pest detected. Yeah, that is again a little proactive. Like we are expecting, we are seeing these signs. Be careful with these pests, or be prepared to manage these pests. So that's also proactive, I would think. Weather-based prediction on possible pest outbreak, I guess, could also be proactive. D feels like very reactive, isn't it? So it can still be early detection. It may not have happened. It may not have spoiled the crop yet, but still it is a bit more reactive, I would think. Right? That makes sense. So that's basically how I reason out. Of course, I wouldn't uh, necessarily know all the details but of these technologies in depth, but I know the requirement I need to do, right? So and then based on that, if it has to be early detection or prevention, then does it make sense? Then who wants to give answer? I possibly have given the answer, so if you have been listening to me well. Yeah. Who wants to go and so if you want to make the most of this, try to come on the mic, okay, next time on. And because it's not just about getting the answers right, it's about working in a group that is less familiar to you, trying to synchronize and align with the group. So there's a lot of skills that we learn in this kind of a workshop model setting. So Boya, are you on the mic? Can you switch it on, or you don't want to switch it on? Yeah. So let's say that this is D is the right choice based on the explanation I have given. And if anyone wants to say anything, please do. Then we'll get into a very quick, small case study that would be possibly be interesting. So which of the following systems can help in variable rate application of inputs to the crops? Select the false option. So variable rate application. So on the last slide that we have done. So drip irrigation system, dripping water onto the soil at very low rates. A nutrient dosing device used in hydroponic system for circulating water at an appropriate intervals and in appropriate amounts. Machinery and hardware coupled with central satellite controlled guidance system. Digitally controlled cluster irrigation system. So if it is digitally controlled, that should be good. Satellite control, that should be good, I guess. Right. So a nutrient dosing device used in hydroponics may not, yeah, it also looks better than at appropriate intervals and in appropriate amounts. It also looks a little bit monitored and controlled. Drip irrigation system is less controlled, isn't it? It's regulated, but it is not that controllable, I would say, right? In that sense. So variable rate application is not possible. If you have opened a pipe, it will apply everywhere the same amounts, albeit in small drops, I would think, right? Yes. So I possibly don't know. Maybe if some of you have gone. Ukono, you want to? You're there? No, you're not there. So Gamal or Gilrick, you want to give an answer on this?
Actually, I'm agribusiness. I'm not agronomist, but I think B. I think it's false. Lutheran doesn't devise used hydroponic system.
Yeah,
Very
but
complex.
but do you think B is more false than A? I find drip irrigation system dripping water onto, because it's not a variable rate application, isn't it? It's a constant application. It's a very saving kind of an application, drip irrigation. It's a very efficient application, but it is not variable rate, isn't it?
Because you mentioned at very low rates, so it's a tricky here.
Yeah, but still, it is not variable rate, right? So yes, it is low rate, it is efficient, it works well, drip irrigation, but it is not. It is not saying, okay, this plant I will give less because it requires less. It doesn't, right? Because the pipe hole decides how much, right? And yeah, Gilrick, you have anything to say?
I'll go for A.
Yeah,
I think B, C, and D looks having some kind of variable rate application um, embedded into what being used for
yeah,
those answers. So yeah, I kind of and as you mentioned, drip irrigation basically is conserving water, but you have a set amount of droplets that are happening for every crop on the field.
yeah. Excellent. Yeah, let's go with that then. Yeah, normal drip irrigation system drips water onto the soil at very low rates, but this doesn't have to. This doesn't have any controller to decide how much water to be supplied and for how much time. Whereas other systems have digital controllers to apply inputs appropriately at variable rates. Okay, let's take that. Now is the case very quickly. So it'll expose us to how a decision is made on the farm, right? Like with the different agri technologies. So let's use another 10-15 minutes to go through this very simple case study. Bruno was one of our academy entrepreneurs. He's doing very well in Zambia. He's based out of Zambia. He's running a greenhouse vegetable farm. Have had bad experiences with the suitability, quality, authenticity, and pricing of the vegetable seeds he has been using. He has led to less than optimal yields, in some cases full crop losses. He's keen to build more resilience into this key activity. Which of the below would help him address this challenge? So challenge is authenticity of the seeds, the agri inputs. So buying seeds through a global online portal such as Alibaba, is that more? Does it solve his problem? Or changing the agri input suppliers, would that solve the problem? Localized digital agri input marketplace running on blockchain technology, will that solve a problem? What do you think? Which, when I buy from which of these sources, is making me more assured of its quality? Yep. C, localized. So anything with a blockchain should be the right answer, is it, Natasha?
Yeah, definitely. That's what sold it to me. And also that it's localized digital
Yeah.
marketplace, so they might have a little idea. And I think if you're buying anything from Alibaba, you don't really know the quality in general, let alone for agriculture.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Right. I completely agree with you. So that kind of, yeah, Gamal, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Welcome.
I think the none of the above. It is all of them they are failed because buying seeds from Alibaba, it's not being adaptable. It need like 2 years, to go through agriculture research and get verification from the authorized government.
Mm,
Uh, if we also change the agri inputs may also the same seeds, so it's still the same problem.
right.
For C, localizing digital agri inputs, if he is small farmer, you mentioned that he's agri-beneath. He
Mm,
didn't have, big capital, to look after this kind of. So it could be a solution, but it's not good solution or affordable. So all of them, they are not.
no, but you don't have that information that it is not affordable, right? At least that is a solution. I mean, if you don't have, so what would be your solution? So, no, but Bruno needs the seeds. Now, what is your solution then?
Actually starting for me from my experience. I told you I have a company working in the seed development. I
Right,
start Yes, I start working with the Agricultural Research Corporation.
right,
Those are the responsible institution in the country for seed multiplication. From
right.
that source, I will start do multiplication by myself.
Right, but still, as Bruno, I wouldn't know, right? Like I wouldn't know the supply chain of my seed supplier. So there has to be an easy way for me to be able to authenticate the seeds I am buying. So, for example, for if you were the supplier to Bruno and you were on blockchain technology, then I would know that okay, you are doing so and so steps, your seeds are originating from there, and it is backed by research. All that validation, all the claims you are making, I can validate them with the help of the blockchain technology. Otherwise, I can't, right? How would I trust?
Totally,
You are not
totally.
even.
Yes, totally I agree. But still, localizing, digital agri inputs, it need more effort from different stakeholders, not from himself actually.
No, no, it's not himself. It's the solution provision of an marketplace. So Natasha talked about we talked about Apollo Agriculture and the challenges there are with Apollo Agriculture kind of business models, which is the bias, right? So now, if it is a blockchain based agriculture marketplace with the information given and the validation of that information, then I think to some extent that bias or that push can be avoided, for example, right? So that is one way of doing it. But absolutely, I mean, Bruno needs the solution, and he doesn't have the solution at this point in time, which is where the C is possibly the closest, as Natasha has explained. So I know you are not on a digital marketplace and you are not authenticated by blockchain. So I understand you don't like any of these solutions, but I think of all the three, this is the most scalable or most but that is a futuristic solution that may or may not exist today, but that is the kind of solution that is needed. If you are an agri input marketplace, you would want to build a solution like this for Brunos of this world. Right. So the same guy is making it difficult because he is not having good visibility of costs, revenues, and profitability of his operations. That is making it difficult for him to finance. So if you don't have visibility of these important parameters, financing becomes very difficult. No bank would want to fund you, and so on and so forth. So, which of the below would help him address this challenge? A marketplace selling the best price agri input products, is that what is critical for him? A properly designed farm management software where his cost, revenues, and profitability are captured very well and can be demonstrated. Entire farm powered by IoT sensors so that he can have all the data on the farm and can show it to the bank. None of the above. What do you think? So Satya, I'd give opportunity for you to explain this to us. So take your time, a minute or two, when you're ready. B or D? B.
It would be B.
B, yeah? Okay. So would you like to explain that?
Yeah, it looks like his challenge is to understand how much cost is putting into the farm
Mm,
and revenues and overall profitability.
mm,
I think if you use any software, I mean, related to accounting or anything that helps him to get that statement,
mm.
I think financial institutions will depend on that, right? I mean, they
Correct.
always look for profitability.
Yeah. So because A is going to only help him possibly manage his costs a little bit better. C is only helping him to manage his it's only data related stuff. C, I would say it's B is basically capturing all the activity and all the elements on the farm. So B would possibly be the closest. Why do you think D could also be an option, Natasha?
Um, I wasn't sure. I just thought um, if it wasn't B, I don't know what it would be. So really, I think I meant B.
So when you're not sure, always have a safe option in your kitty, isn't it? Right. So none
Yeah,
of
spread the risk.
yeah, exactly. Wonderful. I like that. Okay, good. So yeah, properly designed farm management software. We continue with Bruno's challenge. So is running a vegetable farm, is about to harvest his produce and is thinking what kind of digital market site capability that could support his scaling ambitions. So selling through Facebook marketplace, selling through a digital food produce marketplace, selling through a food service digital marketplace that take ownership and logistics of the produce, none of the above. Yeah.
I
Gilrick.
think, let me see. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No worries, Satya. It's okay. You don't have to be sorry. You can always. Gilrick, would you like to take us through? I'm sure your farmers would face these dilemmas. I have seen farmers doing A, and failing. And I've seen farmers doing B to some extent and failing. So yeah, what's your choice, Gilrick? What should Bruno do?
So I kind of lean to C.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is you have a distribution strategy that you know exactly that someone is going to take ownership for the produce and distribute at their um, target markets. So that's my option.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very, very important point, because a lot of times we think that, okay, we sell direct, we make more money. But, there's a too much of it's a distribution business is the most complicated business to run in the whole value chain. If you see, the challenges of managing a distribution business are far too much, far too many, because it has a lot of critical uh, operations, real-time operations that needs to be handled, relationships that needs to be managed, maintained, and economics that needs to be managed and controlled. So from the outside it feels that it is very easy, because I produce for 6 months and this guy is selling it in two days and making more money than I'm making, right? That's basically how you see it. But to be able to do that, that particular person has also to invest a lot for those 6 months to manage those relationships and to basically build those capabilities with logistics, storage, distribution, and all of those elements. So you see, you from time to time you hear that middlemen are not good for the business, for the value chain. I would say that non-value adding middlemen are not good for the value chain, but middlemen are needed in the value chain. I would love to have as many middlemen as I can to that are creating more value, because it's not the shortest chain that wins, it is the most value creating chain that wins, right? Gamal, please go ahead.
I want to note that there is a need to emphasize that most of the young entrepreneurs, they are looking for the whole value chain. They want to do all the activities along the value chain, and unfortunately, this is a very tough, task. I know most of them, as I told you from our experience in Enable Youth Sudan program, they start uh, procuring their inputs by themselves rather than using their friends and distribution channel as you mentioned, and start production cycle, which is facing a lot of problem because still in startup phase.
Yeah.
And after that come up to sell their product by themselves, and it is very difficult when you try to negotiate with them. This is not your role. The dignity, they want to raise their personality. I think there's something behind rather than business itself. Need to emphasize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a mindset. That is one thing. Second thing is there is a mistake also. So what you try to do in these programs, many programs that I witness in Africa, like they are trying to say, they are saying that we are developing 2,000 poultry farmers. Now you have 2,000 poultry farmers, you don't have a distribution connection. What do you do, right? So it's one thing is the mindset where people are thinking that if I do everything I'll make more money. That is the sure shot way to failure, because you are doing five businesses at once, while you are not good at even doing one business at once, right? Because you have to establish that business basically, right? So um, I completely agree, and that is because you don't have the whole value chain that is being developed. So when you're developing a program, of entrepreneurship development or enterprise development. If you are only developing producers, or if you're only developing producers and processors, that's not going to work, right? So you should basically have enterprises across the value chain, which is why you see all these concepts. Like I am not an expert in any of these things. Possibly the closest is a little bit on the value chains and on the business models, right? So the other elements I want to come and create value together with you. But what is important to really understand is the power of partnerships. So if you've done the business model course, to be able to understand what you need as partners and what kind of partners or suppliers you would need is a very, very important factor. So a lot of people, when they don't see it existing, they think that it's easier for them to do it. That's not right. So, in the beginning, when you're validating the market, when you're doing something very innovative, you may have to do a few things just because you're in a validation phase. But you want to come out of that phase as fast as possible, but not build siloed businesses in there. But that's a very normal mistake. So if you have started more than one operation and you are serious about more than one operation, then you're never going to scale. You're going to get further and further backwards. We do, all of us do mistakes, because it's not easy to find partnerships, especially when you don't have scale. Now, that's the real challenge as an entrepreneur. How do you manage that phase and still retain your core focus, core competency? That's the key part. Great point, Gamal. Well, all the options indicated does provide some marketing advantage. It takes ownership. So basically, I want to do as minimum as possible outside my core competency. So when will I scale? The fundamental principle to scale is to do the minimum required, optimal minimum amount of effort required outside my core competency. Within my core competency, I don't want to have any constraints, any limitations. I want to be the best producer of greenhouse vegetables in the country, on the continent, in the world. That should be the focus. But beyond that, I want to do an optimal minimum. Only when I have that mindset can I become the best greenhouse vegetable producer in the country, on the continent, in the world. Right. So application of Internet of Things is appropriate for, I think this should be more or less the last question. Application of Internet of Things IoT devices is appropriate for grain storage, cold storage management, soil moisture management. Yeah. So all of the above, I would think there's no reason why should not have should be biased. So there are some very interesting exercises, but all of them you will see in your study. So if you have a hard stop, please drop off. I will try to still finish off my slides rather quickly. This doesn't make any point. Octanian has developed a strawberry picking robot. It's a real company, Dutch based, I think Belgium based company. Which of the following capabilities are critical for this robot to beat the human performance in picking strawberries? So while this feels when we are in Sudan or Nigeria or India as well, so a lot of these feel a little bit for uh, more futuristic, but these are not as futuristic as one thinks. There are economics where this becomes very, very interesting. So picking speed is very important, right? The quality of harvesting is also very much better for the machine picked thing, and handling is much more efficient. So all of the above would be the right choice. Let's see. So, for a foolproof, which of the below is true about a strategic post-harvest and logistic solution? So, it is has to be a strategic. So, for a foolproof, robust, and flexible supply chain, proper temperature control storage facilities should be available at the farm. Data related to temperature and other characteristics should be made accessible while in transit. So that's also very important. A good post harvest logistics solution should be environmentally sustainable. Yeah, why not? That should also be important. So, yeah, we say all of the above. Yeah, so that's it for today. So, my general, now you know my tendency, right? I'll go 15 minutes over every time if I have to finish. Huh? Okay, so thank you so much for your attention. I thoroughly enjoy doing this session. This is a perfect group size for a beautiful workshop. Everybody gets a chance. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. So, if you want, tomorrow there will be a repeat of this session. My colleague Pawan will do it tomorrow. So, if you guys want to attend, feel free to do so. But if you want the record, I think we will send out the recording as well later today. Have fun. Take care. Till next Wednesday. Bye.
Okay, bye.